Okay, so I selected an example out of your book on page 554, and it was talking about the hours that you study for something and the points that you receive on it. So the assumption would be here that the longer you study, the more hours, the higher the points would be expected to be. And so again, I just pulled this off of one of the files from your textbook. And the way that we do this on the computer, and also you can see all of this on page 570. No, that's not right. On page 526, I believe. Let me make sure here. If you go to page 526, it should show you how to input all of this into the computer, and yes, it does. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to use that data analysis tab, so hopefully you guys you still have that on your computer. So I'm going to get this here. So you go to data, you go to data, and then you go to data analysis, and we're going to use regression, and we'll use this for chapter 12 and 13, and click OK. And then it asks you to input your Y range. That's what you're predicting. Well, in this case, we're going to be predicting the number of points that we're going to get on this. So you're going to highlight those. I've already done this once, so you can see it's already pre-filled, but yours will be blank. And then for the X, that's what you're using to predict. We're using the number of hours that we studied to predict. I did highlight the words hours and points, so I'm going to check label. I do want to use a 95% confidence level, so I go ahead and check that. It's pre-filled that way. And then just click OK. And you can see it will bring you up this. And I've already got it over here on another page, so I'm going to bring that one up so you guys can see that. Put a couple of words in here so you can see what all these different things mean. But this is the output you get when you calculate this on the computer. Make it a little bit bigger. There you go. That R that I was talking about, it's right here. It's called multiple R on Excel, and it's called the coefficient of correlation, and it came out to 0.93. So you can see there's extremely strong relationship between the hours you studied and the points you scored. So 0.93 is really high. It's very close to 1. If that number had been like 0.2, that would be very low. There would be a relationship, but it wouldn't be extremely strong. That would mean there's a lot of other variables that affect it. The next number, which I think is the one I like the best, is called the coefficient of determination, which is your R squared. And the reason I like this one is because you can take that number and turn it into a percentage and then do something with it. So I can take this 0.877 and I can turn that into like 87.8%. And the way I would say that is 87.8% of the variation in the score that you got was explained by how much you studied. So 87.8% of the variation in what your score was and somebody else's score was and somebody else's scores was can be explained by the amount of time, the variation, and how much you studied. So I like that because it's real quantitative and it makes it easier to see. The standard error, it tells you how much difference there is between your value and the predicted value, the value that would fall right on the line. I'll show you that here in a little bit. Then that tells you how many observations. Don't worry so much about all this. These numbers were all used to calculate these numbers. But the one thing that you do want to see is if this significant F, which is the same thing as a p-value. So this is a p-value. If this number is less than 0.05, then they're using a 5% level of significance. Then there is a significant relationship. And you can see this e to the negative 5, if you're not familiar with that. That means just move your decimal place 5 places to the left if I was to reformat this cell here so that it had to show me what that actual number was. You can see that it is 0.000000. That's the actual number right there. It was just doing a difference. So that is definitely smaller than 0.05. So there is a significant relationship between our study. And we expected that because this has such a high R. Okay, the last thing, which I'll stop the video and come back and talk about that in just a minute.